Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing The Exorcist, written by William Peter Blatty. Here's the book. Now, I saw this at the library by accident. I was just there getting some books on hold, and I walked past it at one of those spots in the library where the librarians put up books of interest. I knew I had to read it once I saw it. I haven't read this before. It's a great horror book. It's a great psychological horror book as well. And I think the psychological element is bigger than the other horror elements in this story. The other horror elements are there. And when they're there, they're very, very well written, very vivid, very real. They're in your face. And the great thing about this book is the way it's written. The language used, the fact that there's not much waste by the author in this book. Let's talk more about the book now. Many of you, or most of you, will know this plot already. It's one of those standard horror movies that most people have seen, I think anyway. The book was written in the 70s, and the movie was made in the 70s as well. It is a good movie, and this book is a great book. It says on the cover, the most terrifying book you've ever read. It wasn't the most terrifying book I've read, but it's still quite chilling and quite gripping. The horror moments are very, very gripping indeed. But it's those psychological horror moments that really, really make this book what it is. The plot is basically a young girl called Regan. She's a normal girl. Her mother, Chris, is a movie star, and they've moved to Washington temporarily while Chris is filming a movie. Regan starts to act strangely. She starts talking to an invisible friend. And then there's noises coming from her room, scratching noises, thumping noises. Chris thinks it's mice or rats or something to begin with, and they get traps in. But in the attic space, it's very clean and there's no mice or rats around. So the noises continue. Regan still talks to this invisible presence. Then other things start happening as well. Furniture starts moving in the middle of the night. Heavy furniture that a young girl shouldn't be able to move. Other things start happening as well. Regan can't sleep properly. She's not eating. Her behaviour is changing as well. She's swearing at people using, bad language that she'd never used before, and words that her mother wouldn't think she'd know even. This all starts continuing and start getting worse and worse as time goes on. Other things start happening as well, bedwetting, all that sort of thing. Her mother thinks that could be something going on physically, or mentally maybe, so she starts going to doctors, finding out from doctors what's going on. Many, many doctors start checking Regan out, doing many tests, and all the tests come back as negative. There's nothing going on with her brain, everything's functioning properly, nobody can work out what's going on. And given that it's written in the 70s, many of the things that the doctors term it as is hysteria, or just general things like that that wouldn't really make sense today. During the course of this beginning time of the changes, we get some of the classic moments you'd remember from the movie. I won't go into those moments from reading this book, but they are there as well in the book. Also, what's going on in this book is one of Chris's friends, who's a director, turns up at the house when Chris isn't there, and then he vanishes. No one knows where he's gone. A short time later, we find out that he's dead. He fell out of Regan's bedroom window, and his neck was twisted 180 degrees. So his neck is backwards, his head's backwards. The police think that somebody's murdered him. Somebody would have had to twist his neck, and it had to be someone very strong. A child couldn't do it, even though it's from Regan's bedroom and nobody else was in the house at the time. They don't think a child had the strength to twist this guy's neck. The detective investigating this, Kinderman, he starts to learn more about Regan as well. Chris tells him that she's unwell. She's had problems. It could be psychological because she's always sedated when he asks. And he's starting to wonder, could this girl be responsible for breaking this guy's neck, for twisting his head around? And he has this dilemma going on in his storyline. Can he bring a young girl to justice? If it's a young girl that's suffering from some mental disorder, can she be held responsible for a murder? And that's quite interesting in this story as this detective grapples with that. We also have, of course, the priest, Damien Carras, who's asked by Chris to help out. At this stage, she's thinking that her daughter's possessed. She's exhausted all the medical options, physical and mentally. And the daughter's behaviour is getting worse and worse. She's talking in other voices now, swearing all the time. She knows secrets about people that she shouldn't know. She even starts talking in the voice of the guy that died, the guy that fell from her bedroom window. And her jerking movements, she has spasms all the time, and different things going on as well with her behaviour. And physically, she's changing as well. Her skin, she's getting sores and things all over her body. Other things going on as well with her physical appearance. And Chris thinks that her daughter is possessed. And in this book, Chris is an atheist, and she doesn't believe in religion or God at all at the start of the book. But as this goes on in the story, she's jumping in to the fact that her daughter's possessed. She's believing it. And as the priest, Damien Carras, who has a harder time believing it, he doesn't believe in possession at all. He thinks it's all mental, and he's doing everything he can to prove that Regan is not possessed. He wants to prove that it's all mental, not spiritual. Of course, as the story goes on, he does believe there's possession, and he gets somebody else to help him, a priest with more experience. And then we have Merrin entering, and he's a priest who's done exorcisms in the past. And this is where I'll leave the plot. Even though most of you will already know the story, what goes on, I'll leave the book here. And I'll just say that this book is very, very well written, extremely well written. The language used, the phrasing, the imagery, the characters, everything about this is so well written. The plot is so well thought out. The way it's structured, the way the stages go in this book, it's just so well thought out and so well written. And the ending is also very interesting, what happens at the end. And I can't recall if the ending is exactly what happens in the movie, because I saw the movie, I think the last time, many, many years ago. But the ending, I think, is very gripping. And I want to read more by the same author, because it's the first time I've read anything by this author. Every character in this book is well written. Even the small characters, the very small characters we only see for a few pages, you can picture them all. They're described very well, and they all feel so real. Regan, the daughter, is so well written, especially for a child character, and not many authors can write children very well. That's my opinion anyway. Many authors fall into a trap of writing children as too clever, too smart, too worldly. But it's not like that in this book. At the start of the book, she just feels like an ordinary child. As the stages go on and she changes bit by bit, those changes feel so believable, and her behaviour changes in each stage. And it feels so real. And it makes sense to the character. And I think that was so well written by this author. It's so well constructed, and her character is so well stitched in to the overall plot. Chris, who's the mother, is a very interesting character. Being an atheist, doesn't believe in religion or God, but she's so eager to jump to the conclusion that it's possession. She's the one that holds on to that, even though other people around her don't so much. And I found that very interesting in this book. Her reactions, her behaviour, everything about her feels so real. You feel her fear, her tension, her worrying about her daughter. You feel all that so vibrantly in this book. She's a great character in the book, makes perfect sense. Carras, who's the priest, he's one of the most interesting characters in this book. I feel this book is all about him and Regan. They're the characters that have, I guess, the most interesting storylines in this story. The ones that struggle the most with different things and for different reasons. Carras struggles with his faith. He's a priest that doesn't know if he believes in everything anymore. And I found that interesting, especially when he's faced with what's going on with Regan. His faith is put on the line, and he believes it's not possession at the start. He doesn't want to. He just thinks it's all psychological. He thinks there's more logical reasons than possession. He comes around towards the end, of course. Well, he has to. That's the plot. But I just love the fact that this character, this priest, thinks it's psychological, and then we have the mother thinking it's possession. and makes it for a very, very interesting psychological horror. I think this book is brilliant. I think it's written so well. I think the characters are very, very good. I think the overall plot is so well thought out. You can tell why this book made such an impact when it was first published. The scenes in it are so in your face, so provocative. You can tell that this book really stood out in its time. I rate this a 5 out of 5, not just because it's a staple of horror and not just because of when it was written, it would have made such an impact. It's written very well. The characters are brilliant. It's so well plotted, so well thought out. I think the whole structure is perfect. It is a perfect psychological horror book. And it does have more intense horror scenes, but it's that psychological element that stands out to me more than anything else. On my channel, I do review other horror books. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. You'll also find a horror playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.